What is up, everybody? Welcome into this episode of NBA previews for Vendetta Sports Media. I'm Jerry Walker. Alongside me today is Matt Hanifan. Matt, we have finally reached it, just a couple days out. How pumped are you for the NBA season before we hop into what we're talking about today, which is the Atlanta Hawks?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Obviously, the baseball postseason's here. I'm a Yankees fan. They're in the World Series. That is exciting in and of itself. The NHL season just started. College football and NFL are in full swing, but basketball specifically, I'm ready. That's me. I'm just ready for it. It starts tomorrow. Opening night's tomorrow. I know most of the teams start on Wednesday and Thursday, but we have Knicks Celtics tomorrow. We have Timberwolves Lakers. I'm just really excited to watch those two games. I'm at the point where, I was at this point, last week when we were recording this on Monday, October 21st. I'm at the point where, or I was at the point last week where it was just like I'm just waiting for these games to start. Like I'm tired of bickering and bitching about preseason. I'm ready for all the regular season discord. I'm ready for all the regular season hoops, guys playing 35 minutes a night. I'm just ready for it. I'm ready for just basketball to be back in my life for the next 6-7 months.
Oh, absolutely. I am also. Cannot wait for it to finally be here. College basketball is just around the corner as well, which that's just
Yep.
as much fun. Going to be a very entertaining season there. But back to what we're talking about today, which is the Atlanta Hawks. And interesting season last year. They made the
Not
play-in.
very entertaining.
Not yet. Interesting, but not entertaining. And I guess the offseason was probably more surprising, but they made the play-in, finished 36 and 46. Didn't do very well in that play-in. They were one and done, lost to Chicago pretty heavily. They got kind of killed. It was 131, 116. Then the offseason. So we'll get into that in a second. But what did you think of this Hawks team last season? What was kind of your impression of what they did, and were you surprised that where they finished?
I was a little surprised. I was a little underwhelmed because I thought the first full year of Quinn Snyder would have had better results than it did. They were 11th in offense, 27th in defense. It was just disappointing to me. Like the Murray Young, storyline was a cloud the entire season. Murray was involved in trade rumors up until the trade deadline. They didn't trade him. I guess the one exciting part about last season that I really liked from Atlanta was Jalen Johnson's breakout. Um, I'm, I I was a fan of Jalen Johnson as a prospect. That's only grown since he's been in the league, and first you saw flashes of it. But then last year he really, emerged himself as like a rebounding, interior scoring, like just very, very active wing on both ends of the floor. And that was something that I really liked from him, just as an emerging kind of a player and piece that they have on that roster. It was just a disappointing season for, I mean, Trae Young he's never missed more than like 11, 12 games in his career. He missed almost 30. Um, Even when he was out, it just, like the DeJounte Murray piece was obviously cool because, I mean, he played a little bit more like he did when he was in San Antonio. But at the same time, like the defense to me was a little underwhelming. And then there were some other pieces on the roster. Like we still really don't we do know, but we also don't know what DeAndre Hunter is. The Clint Capella thing is just like I've been waiting for Onyeka Okongwu to be the starting center there for years now, and it's still not. He's still not. And the Capella piece is still there. It was just a lot of not questionable pieces, but I don't think that's I don't think that's a well constructed roster.
No.
And so I think they did we can, I guess, transition into the offseason. I think they did a decent job trading DeJounte Murray, even though the package wasn't great, but they got Dyson Daniels. They got Larry Nance, who Larry Nance has been really all around the league at this point, and he helps to some extent wherever he's at, even at this stage of his career. They were able to get a Lakers pick in 25, and then they got another pick, I believe, in 27. I can't remember who it's from exactly, but they were able to, you're not selling high on DeJounte Murray, but that's as good as you may get. Even though you did trade a bunch to get him in the first place. So I mean, it's a kind of a lose scenario. It's lost scenario there, but at the same time, you were able to split up that backcourt. I still wonder how much time Trae has left. I know plenty of people do. I'm not sure what the Hawks' future looks like from that perspective, but at least they were able to get something of value back for DeJounte.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it was an underwhelming season for me. I didn't expect this team to be 10 games below 500 and barely in a play-in spot in a conference where making the play-in is relatively easy if you're at least trying to win.
yeah, I mean, you look at the teams that they finished ahead of. It wasn't exactly anything special. You expect Brooklyn, Toronto, Charlotte, the Wizards, the Pistons were all kind of. You knew they weren't going to contend that much for it. I thought Atlanta was going to finish a little higher. I assumed the play-in coming in, but I thought it was going to be like a 7 or 8 seed in the play-in and having that home game and having that second chance, which I kind of expected because it's Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. I really wanted to see them work well together, and there were glimmers at times, but they're both two ball-dominant guards that kind of need to have the rock in their hand, and it just was a clash of styles. So I do, on that part, like breaking them up, like you said. I'm very curious to see how DeJounte Murray does in New Orleans, but it's a decent haul in return. That other pick they got, it's the least favorable of the Milwaukee Pelicans pick in the first round in 2027. So who knows what that could end up being? Would assume it'll be the Pelicans pick.
If Dame retires,
Yeah, that's
or
the thing.
Dame isn't there anymore.
Yeah, that's another thing.
If I'm not saying if like I know Giannis had to quote this last weekend about like, yeah, if we don't win a title, I'm going to get traded or whatever. I don't think they're going to trade him, but if they're bad or if they're not, I mean that team's old, man. I mean
Yeah,
this obviously isn't the Bucks preview, but
well,
Chris
that's
Middleton's had surgery on both of his ankles in the offseason. Brooke Lopez is like
somehow
ancient, and then
going.
like that team is really old, man. So like obviously Giannis is Giannis. He's the best player on the planet. You always give him a chance, but that pick can also be really good come 2027 potentially. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to get people excited here, but that has the potential to be a really good pick if it falls apart over there over the next few years.
Yeah, which very possible. So it's just something to keep an eye on if you are the Hawks. It's kind of planning on that future, and I think that's another thing. This team is not the youngest anymore. It's still got a bunch of younger guys, and I mean Dyson Daniels, he's only what 18, 19 at the moment, so he still has a lot to going ahead for him.
He's only
Obviously,
18 or 19.
is well, I mean, he was born in
I think
2000. Oh,
he's
he's
young.
21, born in 2003. I had my numbers mixed up. God, crazy seeing 2003 is 21 years old now, but hey, there we have it. I'm really curious, and somehow they made the play and finished that 10 seed, like we said, but they won the lottery. Finished with that first overall pick and drafted Zachary Risache, Risache, drafted him first overall, small forward from France. I don't know a bunch about him. I mean, wasn't watching much, but it seems like he's kind of that spread the floor, mid range, 3-point shooter. Sounds like he's got a pretty good jump shot. So that kind of fits in off the bench because I'm assuming that's where he'll start out. I don't see him starting over DeAndre Hunter at the moment. But like you said earlier, DeAndre Hunter is such an interesting piece in this lineup as well that we'll see how long it takes for Risache to get going. What did you think of that? Did you like that first overall pick? Was that kind of what you expected?
I was on record saying that I would probably take Sar or Klingon, number one.
Yeah, Sar was the one
and a part of that is the Capella piece to it. I mean, I know I just said a couple minutes ago that I've been waiting for Onyeka to start. I know he dealt with some injuries last year. I think Capella is entering the last year of his deal. Another guy that I would have considered just for like, I know there's a redundancy factor to it. I don't think I would have done this number one overall, but I would have thought about it was Reed Shepherd.
Okay.
But the thing that's interesting to me, like Risa Shea isn't your typical number one pick because he doesn't have it's not like a flashy number one pick per se. Like I think if you're the number one overall pick, you want to know what you're getting to some extent. I know that it was different in Atlanta's circumstance because they were a team that leaped like 10 spots in the lottery. And so they weren't like one of the worst teams in the entire league. They weren't like a Washington, they weren't like a Portland or something like that. Portland or Washington, by the way, was number 2 overall pick, but like they weren't like that caliber of team. Like they were still a team again in a play-in spot, and so they leaped. And so maybe they were looking for something different as opposed to a guy that they wanted. You wanted to get you knew what you were getting. Risa Shea was raw in France. Like he was more of like a lanky 6'9", 6'10", 3-and-D prospect. He shot 39% from three his final year there, over in Europe. And I think he ended the season really well shooting. Like he has a good touch. The thing with him is like he can't really handle. Like he's really good in transition. Like he can run the floor. He's agile on that way, but he can't really. He wasn't a guy that like you're relying on the half court to create or stuff like that. Like he showed glimpses of it in summer league, but that just wasn't what you were getting out of him. And so I didn't like how, I know it was under kind of like a previous regime when they got him. I didn't like how they developed DeAndre Hunter. And so maybe this is like, I don't know if they're going to part ways with DeAndre Hunter. I don't think his value is particularly high or anything like that. But I wonder if this is like the replacement for DeAndre Hunter potentially in the future if something like that does happen. But he's also just like a big wing and like he's a solid defender. At least like good, not great. But he is definitely a guy that could, if he's gets his feet under him, if he's set, he can knock down shots from deep. I don't know if that's something that they're gonna, I don't know what I'm interested to see what his role is as a rookie, just because again, like there's a lot of baggage that comes with being the number 1 overall pick. Doesn't matter how good you are or what team you're getting drafted to. There's a lot of baggage with it. And so I'm very curious to see how they develop in it. I don't think they're gonna fast track him, but I don't know. I've said this on other platforms before. Like I wish I could be in the room with Quinn Snyder talking about this because I just don't know what they're going to do with that, how they're going to develop him. And I'm very curious in that perspective, in that angle. And so I didn't love the pick, but like, I've kind of talked myself into like, okay, I can maybe see what they're trying to accomplish with it, even though we won't know for another, 2 or 3 years, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be a kind of a long-term-ish project. It's not like the first overall pick last year, Victor Wembanyama. It's not like you need him to have an immediate impact. He's going to be star-bound right away. This is one that I think they're going to take their time. Because what you said with DeAndre Hunter's, when he first came into the league, they didn't really get him going the way that a lot of people thought he could. And I'm wondering if this is their second try, kind of redo it, make sure you do the right things, not the wrong things like they did with Hunter at times. And I agree with you. I think this is going to be a guy who they will have as their starter. I don't know if it'll be this season or even next season, but he will be their starter down the road. And maybe he'll become the face of the team because Trae Young's going into his 7th season in Atlanta. I don't know how long he'll be there. That's another one that's like maybe they trade him. Maybe they struggle in the first half of the season this year and we'll kind of transition into what you're expecting this season from them. But maybe they struggle, don't look too good the first half, can find someone who wants to get Trae or trade for Trae and kind of build up those picks and make this team more built for the future because it's not exactly the youngest team in the league by any means. There's got a couple young guys, but still, it's nothing too crazy. What are you expecting this year? Because it's a very interesting lineup. You look at the guard depth; it's kind of a bit inexperienced with Dyson Daniels looking like he'll be the starting shooting guard. You got Kobe Buffkin coming off the bench as the backup point guard, which that in itself concerns me a little bit because I haven't seen major waves from him yet. I know he's still young, still kind of finding his way in the league, but you go from having 2 top-notch guards to kind of you have Trae Young and this supporting group. I don't know how useful Bogdan Bogdanovic will be this year. I know he's getting up there. He's 32 now. What are you expecting from this? I guess especially this backcourt.
I have questions about the backcourt. I do think like I do think Quinn's gonna limit a rotation. Like I do think this is just me prognosticating. I could be completely wrong. I do think Trae and Dyson start together. I do like I think Dyson complements him well.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least he complements him better than DeJounte did from like a defensive standpoint. Because like DeJounte Murray was a really good defender when he was in San Antonio. That dropped off considerably when he was in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
And again, this isn't the New Orleans thing. I wonder if he does find that again in New Orleans and in a winning context with surrounded by some of those guys. But like I think Dyson complements him better. I do love Bogdanovich. I do think he's one of the best 6 men in the entire league. I still think he can be very productive at this stage of his career. Being, as you mentioned, 32 years old. He's gonna be extension eligible next offseason with a team option. He's gonna be extension eligible in a couple of years with team option. But with him, like he's a guy that I like as like an igniter or an ignitable piece off the bench. A guy who can, provide some secondary creation, kind of run that second unit. And then when you get to like the Kobe Buffkin territory, like I'm with you, like I was higher on Kobe Buffkin toward the end, but like at the same time, I just haven't necessarily seen it yet from him. Maybe he develops that. They also have David Roddy. I know he's not really a guard or anything like that, but they have him in the mix. They have Garrison Matthews, who can come in and knock down shots for him. He's more of like a 3-point specialist, a sharpshooter, a movement shooter. He'll get his shots from anywhere around the floor, anywhere around the arc. So he's someone to consider. But like I do think there's a limited rotation, backcourt rotation to some extent. In terms of the team outlook, I think they're better than they are last year. Because again, I don't think Trey misses as much time as he did last year. I think they can beat up on the bottom of the East a little bit because the bottom of the East, like we thought last year was bad. It's Brooklyn, Washington, they're all gonna suck this year. Like they're gonna suck.
We assume Detroit will be in the same boat once again.
I'm a little bit higher on Detroit, but they're still not gonna be great. But at the same time, like they're gonna beat up on the bottom of the East, like it's nobody's business. So I do think they are a little bit better than they are last year. I kind of see them around like 38, 39, 40 wins. I do think they are probably I have them as the 9 seed in the East right now, just heading into the season. I don't think they're above a team like Miami yet. I don't think they're above some of those other like fringe play-in teams. Like I just don't think they're in that territory yet. But I think if you get a Trey Young who plays 65, 70 games, you hopefully get a healthier season from Okonkwo. You hopefully get a healthy season or fully healthy season from Bogdanovich. You hope you get a solid season from DeAndre Hunter or Reese Shea, or you hope you're able to get some help in the front court from Larry Nance Jr. Like you're hoping for a lot of things. You hope Dyson Daniels pops into something in really the first stint of his career where he's playing like really extended minutes. He's going to be playing for an extension here soon. So like you have guys like I think Jalen Johnson's going to take another leap this year. Like I think they will be a better team this upcoming year. I'm still not high on them. Like I still think they get bounced in the first round if they make the playoffs. Like I think they're in that kind of territory. Obviously, they'd likely be going up against a team like Boston, who they got eliminated by 2 years ago when they were, when they advanced past the plan or whatnot. But like I don't think this team's very. I think this team is okay. They have some pieces I like, but I ultimately don't think this team is like a 45-win team or anything like that. I think they may be better than some people expect them to be, but not by a considerable margin, I guess.
Yeah, I think on the high end of things, their peak this year could be maybe 42 wins if everything works. Dyson comes in and plays well because that's going to be, as you just said, this is a big step forward for him. He only started 16 games last year, played 61. The year before he started 11 of 59 that he played. If he works out, then and can actually make that next step to that starting role and continue his defensive production, he averaged 1.4 steals last year, which was what DeJounte Murray averaged. That led the Hawks last year. So defensive end, I could see him having much more of an impact than offensively, just because we know Trae Young is going to shoot the ball a lot. He also does pass the rock around a lot, so maybe he'll be finding Dyson open and some of that stuff. But the only other one I'm kind of curious about is last season was a year full of injuries, it seemed, for them. A lot of guys getting hurt. You had Sadiq Bey starting 51 games last year. Then you trade him then he leaves for Washington this offseason. Do you think Larry Nance kind of fits in and takes that power forward backup role, or because that's
Yeah, I mean, they played.
Johnson take the step forward, but so it was a weird year last year, and seeing Sadiq Bey have 51 starts was something that's just in my mind. Like, how can you replace him, and is this the right way to have done that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit. It's a little bit different in the sense if you're just looking at Nance and Bay, like they're two different players to some extent. Um, Bay obviously did get hurt toward the end of the season. He, I think tore his ACL. He's going to miss this entire season. He signed. He kind of because he. The thing that sucked for him was he was entering restricted free agency this year, and so like the fact that he did tear his like it killed his market. I mean, thankfully he was still able to get I think it was 18, 19 million from Washington, and I kind of like that move for them. I talked about that I think in another preview. Like I kind of like that move. Just as like a buy low guy, 3-and-D guy. I know he had a down shooting season last year. With Lance, it's like a little bit of a do it. I mean, I know he's improved his 3-point shot over time, but he's just a little bit of like a do it all like wing, like small ball. Like he can be a small ball 5 if you ask him to be. You can also, I think he can play next to Okongwu. I think he can play next to potentially Capella. Like just as he's like a veteran glue guy that I'm just kind of looking at in this spot. And so he's kind of the guy where I was like, I think he can, be productive, whether he's a 4 or 5 off the bench. I think he can be somewhat productive, especially if like, one of Capella or Okongwu goes down or something like that. If something like the off chance that one of those two guys get hurt, then I think he's definitely someone who can, make somewhat of an impact in that rotation. And then Jalen Johnson, again, like I think he takes another ascension just because of like, he's probably the second best player on the team or one of the best players on the team behind Trae Young. Like I genuinely do believe that like he did improve his 3-point shooting. He's a very active rebounder on both the offensive glass and the defensive glass. He can score around the rim. He's very, very athletic. He can shoot the ball a little bit. Like he's very much a guy who's developing into something, and I think he's only continuing to grow as a player. And I think they've done a good job, or at least they did a good job, like letting him expand his wings. No pun intended, but expand his wings and do whatever he needed to do on the floor and like kind of give him that free reign. And so that I think he's the one that takes like the extra ascension. Especially in Sadiq Bey's, now he's no longer there. I think he takes that extra ascension into someone who becomes like a really, really, really like solid player and potentially foundational piece for the next several years for them. Alongside some of those other guys that they have. But no, I'm very, very high on Jalen Johnson. And that's who I think like takes the bulk of that, if I'm being completely honest.
All right. Like that analysis for it. Well, Matt, any final thoughts on the Atlanta Hawks? I think we both agree that it's going to be a better year than last year, but nothing too crazy. If they do get through the play-in, it'll be one and done, I would assume, in the first round. So any final thoughts or final comments on the Atlanta Hawks ahead of their NBA season getting underway against the Brooklyn Nets?
Just don't mess up Risa Shea's development. Yeah. You got to hit. I mean, fine, you're a playing team now, but if you trade Trae Young or something happens or whatever, like you got to have some foundational pieces there. And Risa Shea is definitely one of them, considering he was the guy that you took number 1 overall over a few other guys. I know it was a flat draft. I know there are plenty of arguments for other guys. One other guy that I didn't mention that I liked potentially going 1 was Stephon Castle. But just don't fuck that up. Pardon my French, but don't mess that up. Yeah. It's gonna be a multi-year project.
Oh, absolutely.
But don't mess it up.
It's not going to be an immediate impact, I don't think, for him. But hey, there you have it, folks. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's going across the ticker on the bottom, Vendetta Sports Media on YouTube. Check out all of our other NBA previews. The NBA season is around the corner, so we'll have those. Check out the website where we have all of our written previews as well, and a whole load of other stuff around the entire world of sports. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.